Senator Menendez, thanks very much for joining us this Sunday.
Good to be with you, Jim.
After that meeting, Senator Marco Rubio tweeted the following. He said, "I am now very confident Senate Intel Committee I serve on will conduct thorough bipartisan investigation of Putin interference and influence." Have you spoken to any members of the Intelligence Committee about what new they learned from Director Comey?
No, I have not. But I think they're pursuing a vigorous effort to get to the bottom of it. The only question for me is the Intelligence Committee in and of itself alone the appropriate entity, particularly since much of what they'll do will be in secret. And I think there are elements of the whole Russia scandal that deserve to be in the public view.
This is a question here because there are so many politics, as you would expect, around this. Some Democrats concerned that even a bipartisan committee would not be aggressive enough. From your point of view, do you think there needs to be an independent commission, something along the lines of the 9/11 Commission?
I think the question of Russia trying to undermine our democracy, a direct attack by cyber, is something that rises to that importance. It's a new world, and we have to be prepared for it, and we have to know what was involved in the process, not only of that, but what happened in the aftermath. We have a national security apparatus that is stuck and mired in the muck of Russian connections. We have a set of circumstances where Russia is engaged in trying to do this in elections in Western allies this year in France and Germany. And so it seems to me that knowing the who, when, what, and everything that transpired deserves an independent commission. Now, I know my colleagues are going to work at it really hard. I don't question their commitment, but there are so many different elements of this. Foreign relations, where I sit on, could be looking at Russian foreign policy vis-a-vis Russia and the effects that it has in this regard. You could be looking at it from an intelligence angle. You could be looking at it from the judiciary angle as it relates to the election process in this country and how Russia tried to affect it. Instead of having disparate elements, a commission that is committed ultimately, I think, would be the greatest course. In the absence of being able to create one, because I think those calls have been rebuffed by the Republican leadership in both the House and the Senate, then we need to vigorously pursue it through each and every one of these avenues.
Russia, ties to Russia, ended the career of a national security advisor this week. As you know, in an interview last month with the FBI, General Flynn initially denied he had discussed U.S. sanctions against Russia with the country's ambassador before President Trump took office. Turns out that was not true. Do you think at this point, he's lost his job now, but do you think that General Flynn should face legal repercussions for potentially at least making false or incomplete statements to the FBI?
Well, that will be for the Justice Department to pursue, but let me just say, this is not a de minimis factor. I know that there are some who have tried to brush it away. You know, here we are trying to get Russia to understand that there are real consequences for trying to affect our elections. And I know that President Trump doesn't want to hear that, but it's not a question of whether they succeeded in affecting our elections or not. The question is the mere effort of Russia through cyber attacks and engagement trying to affect our elections should be an issue of outrage for every citizen from the president on down. And also, we're trying to get Russia to observe the international order, which means stop invading countries like Ukraine, stop indiscriminately bombing civilians in Aleppo. And you can't get them back into the international order if there's a wink or a nod that says don't worry about the sanctions. So this is incredibly important. And I know that the president is focused on talking about the lying press, but he should worry about those in his national security apparatus that lied to him.
Strong words. I want to turn now to immigration, big issue domestically. President Obama, when he was in office, as you know, he signed an executive order that made it possible for 750,000 young people who were brought to the U.S. illegally as children to stay and work in this country without fear of deportation. During the campaign, President Trump vowed to repeal that order. He now says he finds that situation, though, to be very difficult. Listen to his words just on Friday.
The DACA situation is it's a very difficult thing for me because, you know, I love these kids. I love kids. I have kids and grandkids. And I find it very, very hard doing what the law says exactly to do. And, you know, the law is rough.
Listening to those words, it sounds like President Trump may want to find some sort of accommodation for these dreamers as they're known. Have you reached out to him? Have you spoken with the president on this issue?
I have not, Jim, although I believe the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, the Hispanic members of Congress, of which I am one, has, I believe, reached out to the president. Look, I hope that sentiment that the president has may be the only heartfelt element of his immigration policy. These are kids who came to this country through no choice of their own. The only flag they've ever pledged allegiance to is that of the United States. The only national anthem they know is the Star-Spangled Banner. The reality is they're some of our greatest students, valedictorians, salutatorians in their schools and colleges. So we need to take advantage of their human intellect and capacity to help America. So I hope the president is committed to that, and certainly if he is, we're willing to work with him. But I am concerned about his broader immigration policy. The latest reports that I've read of what is being proposed, and in essence is a mass deportation effort where you indiscriminately pursue any immigrant, not criminal immigrants, which I certainly support the deportation of, but ultimately anyone who is found in an undocumented status would ultimately be apprehended and deported with due process totally eroded under the proposals that I'm hearing about. And that's not only going to lead to massive deportations, they're going to affect every element of our society and our economic sector as well. But also, it's going to create the possibilities, which we have seen in the past in immigration raids, of U.S. citizens and legal permanent residents being unlawfully detained in violation of their constitutional rights. And the broad discretion that is being talked about of giving ICE agents is going to be a real challenge in our country.
Senator Menendez, thanks very much for joining us this Sunday.
Thank you.